Hey, good afternoon, guys. This is Andy here in the basement of Toy Tokyo, talking to Peter Kato, and we're going to see what he's been up to and learn a bit more about him. How you doing, Peter?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
That's my pleasure. So, Peter, why don't you tell us a little bit how you get into toys?
Yes. For many years before actually making toys, I was working here in Toy Tokyo as a manager for 7 years. I had a blast, of course, customers, and I got to meet a lot of artists. But for the longest time, I was trying to, in a sense, kind of find my way into the toy industry, but it was really difficult while you were just working, here or anywhere, really. I wasn't making anything, so I felt I was kind of like on the sidelines, waiting for my chance, waiting to be discovered. And I realized there's so many artists, there's so many things to choose from that might not ever happen. So for many years, I felt like I wasn't getting where I was meant to be, at least where I thought I was meant to be. That was until 2009, it's a couple of years ago. I was introduced to Dave Cortez. He was a professional sculptor, artist, and actually he broke it down for me. He actually taught me the very first steps of sculpting, and he did it in just one sitting, literally one sitting. And he said, if you can draw, and if you like to draw, you can sculpt. And I didn't believe him at first. I was like, no, you have to, take tons of years of college or something, but he literally in one sitting broke it down for me, and I'm so grateful because after that, a whole world opened up. And from there, he taught me about resin casting, molding, and so for a couple of years, under his guidance, I literally was, making my own toys, and that was really exciting. It was almost like a dream, that I never thought would happen. I always thought somebody else would have to produce my own toys, Mass produce is a different question, of course, but what I meant is actually making, toys.
Cool. So, what was your first toy then?
My very first toy actually was a little omake figure that I made for Toy Tokyo's 10th anniversary event. I had made about 100, maybe 125 pieces to be given away at the event, and it was like a little sort of a kind of like a Godzilla-ish character with like a cyborg arm, to kind of signify Toy Tokyo's next step, for the anniversary, because actually that was the first real event that was held here at the Toy Tokyo Underground.
Oh,
yeah, that was my very first. Thank you. That was my very first one. But that was, like I said, that was. I think that was a couple of years ago. So right after that, I didn't actually get right back on it and start making toys like my own stuff that you see now. For a while, just stuff started to happen in my personal life that kind of derailed me a little bit. A couple of hard months, and I remember thinking at that time, it's like you were given the gift and you're not using it. So I got really depressed at one point, and I remember it was one day I was on the internet and I saw this interview, very obscure blog. I can't remember who it was, but they were interviewing Ayako Takagi of Uamo Studios, and it was the last question that I remember. It meant a lot. They asked what advice she would give, to other artists trying to make it out there. And she said three things. She said, belief, truly believe in what you're about to do, then followed by action, and then perseverance. Now, right there and then I realized, most of us aspiring artists, people who want to get out there, we all believe we have something to share. We all believe like, oh, if people just saw this, I know they would love it. But it's the action that we don't take. We don't take that action, and I don't mean just to make, a toy. Like I made, my first toy for Toy Tokyo, and it was great, but it was a giveaway, so everybody was happy to receive it. So the action, what I mean in this case, is to really, put it to the test, put it in a store, and put it for sale, and that's a big step of taking action, I believe, So after that point, once I had read that, it really fueled me. It really got me back on my feet. And so San Diego Comic-Con was a couple of months away. And so I was like so revved up and I wanted to get something out, and I did, I was making these figures, my first batch of Pocket Powers, my Pocket Powers, and my initial idea was to approach Matt Dowdy from O'Neill Designs, my hero in the toy industry. What's interesting about Matt is that he actually is so inviting and so supportive that even while I was just working at Toy Tokyo, before I knew how to like sculpt or make toys, he was like approaching me, and saying like, Pete, whenever you get something ready, whenever you get something done, just come here, and we'll get it out. And I was like, what? It's like, how can this person be so good? It's like I haven't had anything at that point. But I had contacted Matt, and let him know what I was doing, and he was so excited for me and so supportive. And so I was getting the Pocket Powers ready, and then the tsunami earthquake disaster happened, and so I changed gears because I realized I have to take this opportunity and try to raise money for a charity for Japan with my first toys, and that was a challenge as well. So that's when I decided to make them white and red, and I, brought them to San Diego, and right there I had my first challenge, learning lesson of actually selling toys. Whatever the cause, it still came down to, will it sell? And in the beginning it didn't, and that was so humbling, I had so much support from like my peers and everything, but in the bottom line, it's not easy to sell something, you have to advertise, you have to really get the support of, many people, like blogs, and, it's just like you need to really get it out there, it was a big learning thing for me. And that's when I just got onto Facebook. So my first initial steps were to approach all the artists that I admired during that time, and just to let them know that I was actually doing something, and please check it out, that kind of thing. And I sent an email to Ayako at that time, and she received it so well. She was like, "Oh my God, these are so great! Would you ever consider doing an exhibition in Japan?" I was like, really? I was blown away.
And that was last year we covered that.
Yes, you did. And I was so thankful,
Happy to meet you there.
Oh, that was crazy that we met each other there. It was such a happy moment for me. So, excuse me. And so having a show at Studio Wamo, that was beyond exciting for me. It was it was like one of the dreams come true. And that whole event, that whole time I was there, I got to reconnect with like Mori from Real Head. I got to go to Goto-san's studio and got that the Tetsujin painted there, and it was really, really an overwhelming experience. Also, what am I thinking? Ayako got me into hyper hobby, and working in Toy Tokyo, you use hyper hobby as like the reference point between, like staff and customers. And so we looked at that book every day, and to think, at this point, so early in my, my steps into the toy industry, that I would get to be in it. Crazy.
Yeah, when I met you in Japan, I was really impressed, and your Japanese is perfect.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
You grew up there?
No. What it is like, I was born and raised here, but I realized that it was my folks. My mother and my father never spoke English. They only spoke Japanese with me, and they realized, if they didn't, because outside the house, English, so they made it an effort to make sure that communication was always in Japanese. They had me participate in, Japanese, like, cultural things. Like, I did kendo for like 13 years. There was like Japanese weekend school. So all these little things, like, I spent my summers as a child, there always, all summer. So every little part of that, was part of them. And I'm really lucky. I realize I'm really lucky. I just took it for granted that, most people were like bilingual, but I realized it wasn't that, so I was really lucky that I stuck with it.
Tell us about these figures here.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. These are the Hinomaru turtle tetsujins, and right now they are literally my proudest piece. They were the most difficult pieces
They
to
look
make.
fantastic.
Thank you. Because the process, literally, it's like I might have mentioned before, it's like a double casting. Not only do I have to, get the base body done, of course, but at the same time I have to get, the red resin, solid red resin, to be centered. I have a whole batch of pieces that, went awry, and because if it just gets skewed a little bit, it's not centered and it just loses the whole effect. And so I made these, and when I made these, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, I really feel like this will be a good one. It really, it really reminded me of like the first time I felt when I made the Pocket Powers, and I realized that I would have to make this as a charity figure as well and raise money for Japan. And I realized it's just a really important part of me. I think everybody has something that's really important to them, and so I feel every year I'll be doing something, for Japan, especially,
Wow.
for that charity.
And these are available at My Plastic
At
Art?
My Plastic Art, yes. They were really great about, getting the word out there and the advertising. Of course, I could have chosen Toy Tokyo, but they still support my items through like the Pocket Powers. Because with the Pocket Powers, there's only two places that are, that they're sold. It's Toy Tokyo or at Studio Wamo. And so, My Plastic Art really helped out. All proceeds, go to the charity. So I was really lucky that they were, on board for that.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
And what are your plans coming up?
Oh, many plans, of course. Every day, every weekend, all weekend, I'm always at my studio. I'm always making. Just last week, I believe, I opened up my web store. It's peterkatoshop.com. And I'm actually, I'm a little busy with that. I set up a whole bunch of different variations on certain figures, so I could sort of change things up the upcoming weeks. I also I'm working on a project. This just literally kind of fell into my lap yesterday for San Diego Comic-Con. Maybe I shouldn't say yet.
Something coming up for Comic-Con.
Something coming up for Comic-Con. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay.
And I'm also, of course, planning, for another trip in Japan, in
Oh,
Tokyo. And
when's
stuff.
that going to be?
I'm hoping by fall.
By fall?
By
Okay.
fall. I would really like to be there by fall. I have a lot to do here right now, so fall
Okay.
would be great.
You had some ideas maybe for next steps beyond resin at some point you're thinking about?
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. Being able to sculpt and make your own figures, of course, is one dream. But my big next dream, of course, is to make soft vinyl, sofubi. I really, really am actually taking steps and in research, and I really want to, get my hands into that and make, my first sofubi figure. Literally, I will take like the major steps this year and get something out. And getting something out is determined when, it can be made, of course. But this year, I'll take those first steps.
Oh, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, thanks for taking time to talk with us, Peter.
Oh, I'm so, jazzed that I'm on here. It's great.
All right. It's our pleasure, man.
Thank you.
All right. Take care of yourself, buddy.